Good afternoon. Thank you for coming to Book Passage today. It's a beautiful day outside, and we're going to have some beautiful reading inside, so we're grateful that you're here. If you haven't already, go ahead and enjoy a glass of wine or sparkling water. It's all in the back, set up during the whole presentation. Before we begin, if you can make sure that your cell phones are off, I would appreciate that. Just take a quick moment.
Thank you.
My name is Monica Golden, and I will be your host this afternoon. Book Passage is honored to welcome Omnidawn authors who will be joining us this afternoon to read from their latest works. Introducing the authors is Rusty Morrison, co-publisher of Omnidawn. She's the author of 5 books. Her latest is entitled Beyond the Chain Link. Rusty is also a beloved instructor here at the Book Passage. On May 23rd, she will be teaching her next class entitled For Poets, Instigating Insight, Revision as Revelation. Please help me welcome Rusty Morrison. Thank you.
Before I announce the readers and talk about what wonderful authors they are, Ken Keegan, my partner in crime, we started Omnidawn Publishing in 2001, is going to come up and say just a word or two about, we just lived through a rather amazing event with Omnidawn, so in case you have heard about it and had questions, he'll just say a word about that for a second.
So I keep getting asked questions about the fire. We had a fire a week ago Saturday at our new location. We just moved there starting in February. We've been moving in, and this is in Oakland. And there was the building is a converted armory, and there were 2 parts of it. There was originally one armory, and there's the building that we have. And there is another building that has been separated from our building that is an armory. That's where the fire started. It jumped the roof. It burned 2 or 3 units. I have heard different stories. It didn't do much damage to us. We were very lucky. There was water from the fire hoses that hit us, came down in puddles, and we had some boxes on the floor because we were in transition and moving into the building. And we had to move a lot of books out of boxes really quick to make sure that we were okay. We only lost about 24 books to minor water damage. Some of the other businesses didn't do so well. There's a printing company, 1984 Printing, and also AK Press. They were in the back of the building, and they got hit with much more water than we did, and they suffered a lot worse. The issue right now for us is that the fire was on Saturday. On Monday, the fire inspector came in to see if the building was safe. He said he thought it was great. He thought it was going to be just beautiful and no problem, and we could, keep on working. But he went back to his supervisors, and they said, no, you've got to tag it. You've got to red tag it. And the reason they're red tagging it is not because it's structurally unsound, but rather because they are not sure that the electricity in the part of the building that was burned is totally isolated and turned off with the other electricity in the building on. So we have to prove that. And if the owner can prove that, he's got his staff working on that, his engineer and his architect. And we're optimistic. We think it's not going to be a problem, but it could be. So anyway, that's the status right now. We're going to learn more about this. Fire inspectors are going to come in again on Monday. And they hopefully will make another decision. And they'll yellow tag it, we hope it, which means that we're working on it, and we're fixing it, and meanwhile we can continue to stay there and operate our businesses. So that's the status for anybody who's wondering. That's all I have to say. My partner in crime, Rusty.
So we're here to honor the writings of our spring 2015 authors who've come to read with us tonight, and to honor Richard O. Moore, who passed away this week. Some of Richard's intimate family will read poems from his book, Particulars of Place. So we'll end the afternoon with that tribute to Richard. So we're here to honor the living and the dead and to celebrate them, their poetry, translations, and prose written with poetry as its soul. Works like these keep us alive and alert to the present moment, even as they enlarge that moment of our experience, allowing our insight to reach farther and wider than we thought we might fathom. So we have actually 7 books to celebrate. 5 of the authors are here tonight, but we have all 7 books available for you to take a look at, and Book Passage generously put out my books. So there's a plethora of books to take a look at here. We'll go without a break. Each reader will read for 10 minutes, and then there'll be time, I hope, for you to drink more of the wine that we brought and sparkling water, and for you to chat with the authors and maybe get a book or 2 signed. But before I introduce the first reader, I want to say enormous thanks to Book Passage, to Elaine and Catherine Petruccelli for their wonderful work. Book Passage has served the Bay Area for more than 30 years, providing the community with an array of author events, writing and language classes, and highly respected annual conferences. So do check out their flyer about all the good things. And big thanks to Leslie Berkler, Monica Golden, who's managing the event, Melissa Burke, who's also an Omnidawn staff member, she does double duty, Brittany Wazin, and Gerard Desiguer, who manages the book sales, and Dana Kelly. So let's give Book Passage a hand. Thank you so much. And I want to give an enormous tribute and thanks to Ken Keegan, who has been the guiding spirit of Omnidawn, and to Jillian Hamill, who is our brilliant managing editor and full collaborator, who helps to make Omnidawn what it is and what it continues to become. So, and I'll just say that we have an email sign-up sheet on the back table with the wine. So as you get happy drinking wine, you might want to sign up for our emails. During Poetry Month, we will be sending out emails with videos of our authors reading their poems, talking about poetry, and some kind of interesting, fun ones where they walk around the city or read poetry to their dog or what have you. So for Poetry Month, a little celebrating, so if you join our list, you'll enjoy that. And you can also remove yourself at any time, of course, when you get tired of us. Don't get tired of us. So I'll begin by welcoming C. Violet Eaton, Chris Eaton. His book, Some Habits, was the winner of our open book contest selected by Forrest Gander. The poems formally oscillate between prose passages and pages that offer minimal lines and maximum of textual variation. I most admire here the consistency, the constellating force of key themes and characterizations, which together act as a gravitational force to keep readers centered and sensing. It is as if there's a congeniality in the voice of the work that makes the reader welcome beside the writing as it travels the near brink of chaos. Listen to it for its candor, its surprise, the directness of the work's address, which nonetheless creates an amazingly rich surface of language that is delighted in communicating homespun truths. Here is a wellspring of meaning and emotional conviction, born of insight. C. Violet Eaton is the author of Bestowed, a handmade journal of new metaphysical verse. His recent work has appeared in Colorado Review, Cannibal, Aufgabe, and many other places. As Dowser, he occasionally releases small editions of Hill Drone recordings from his home in Northwest Arkansas. You can ask him about that. Here's Chris.
I want to also thank Book Passage for putting this reading together. This has been a really wonderful weekend out here in the Bay Area. I haven't been here in a couple of years. It's great to meet people, see old friends. I want to thank Omnidawn, Rusty, Ken for making me feel welcome, everyone who did work on the book, everyone I talked to throughout the process has been great. I want to thank Richard's family and friends who came here. The more I've learned about Richard and talked with people and read his work, the more I'm really humbled to have my book sitting up next to his. So Rusty kind of mentioned that this is a book-length poem as I sort of originally envisioned it, and I'm kind of working through how to read from it. So if you'll permit me kind of moving throughout it and remixing it as we go, hopefully it coheres. Dear David, I discovered this morning upon waking that I did get a good drunk or so out of my weekend. A good page, too. That's from the notebook. I worked both into the text, slowly, altering for sound or for rhythm, listening through the form and into the space the blood hits. In the distance, the whine of an ATV echoes, emanates upward, gets in a head like butane. How can you see? Nimbus borne up, loud like a filament, tonal, a jay, a wasp, a smallish twinkle of glass among gravel. The atmosphere, which is off-white, nearly dusk-colored, though day. Pumpkins rot. Toads. Out by the old wire road, a thresher sleeps, and to the furrows, shows its mass. The faint lights, which, notwithstanding their moderate luster, give an impression of a white, or at the most of a light yellow appearance on the retina. The circular frame, engaging ochre, mute, dropped back from those shadows, almost in light, separate from the eye's aspect, the willow stippled by antlers, the hydrogen, then the oxygen coupling, the variegated star spreading outward, the light upward in a line, tensing violet, then white again, puce, smallish streak of yellow, pushing pale to the tree line. What mirrors myself in passing? Myself makes of passing a point refracted, a point there in space, where the slow crucible of sight catches. In the lower right corner of the margin, a line almost visible there, pitched upwards, such as myself knows. If water can be counted for its sides and angles, if it smells of watermelon, it must be the premonition of snow is carried inside it, and even so. Over the hill, the pond stokes the wheel. I chunk a bit from the southern wall, let the light through and into the mouth. I watch you that way, from the airy cage of my chair. While burning the pond off, you walked a purling crescent. It's a film about causality, and you're in the establishing shot. You and whatever rib cage you've thrown against the wind. David, my dear, it's been 10 years, it's been 15, 17. I try to write truth, possibly, it cannot cohere. You have known this for longer, I cannot longer pretend. The hurt's impulse, the necessary failure predicates. Someone keeps the vines cut to a foot of the hill, and this will give substance to the hill, I think, and the roots will grow larger. This will prevent proud flesh. The roof shingles will lay flat and not cup, but not from the least of motion, far from which, some without of these, in the out of, when and with that over, like that it is released, yes, indeed, the up, the and, the between, and the them of a. The along for but through, the up and the of, the were complete, the was and toward, oh from, off, and every like among, the against, the out of with. In the world beyond the hilltops, I imagine myself a builder or a man of public commitment. But this is seen through the rind, as it were. No matter how many times I revisit the dark corner, how many times the high wall, the crooked way, the naked kiss, there are still so many rain signs. But all signs fail in dry weather. So, okay, pattern emergence is overrated. Choose between conjure or the empty petition. between the sweet ladder of breath and the one sound we had, incept voice. Choose the Irish discussion or the critical lecture, the Irish and their reels. Choose the principal dialectic or the unified field. The answer veils the question. Choose among the questions. What view have ye of God? What think ye of man in his first erectitude? The night's still just a baby, our talk accretes and flickers, as if forming a rhetoric that goes no place, but eventually transmutes to seed. The glove of prepositions, the small naked foal of vowels. I will tell you, David, how to rid yourself of melancholy. Bind the entrails of a chicken to your left palm. As soon as the animal heat leaves, drink good liquor. Repeat for 3 hens. The whiskey kills the poison while the chicken draws it out. And does this reveal a flawed ethic? Does it unmake us as icons? Forgive me that I come down hard when you ask about meaning. Words come in rivulets. I tell them to be less combinatory, to be dire, and to sing in the manner of most molecules. As if it were suddenly in fashion, words but privately meant in the deepness of spirit. Sully heap we can only grin at, clinging to the exterior form, and that's all. The fire halfway between sun and earth I no longer doubt. Not hellfire, just a common fire. Get out of that strange acre, you know, the one where you fall into manhood. I've already been and gone from, away, and to love. A man can, a man cannot. My capacity to love is the Saxon guts of a tongue until swallowed, growing cages and thrones in the heart. The heart in which no object is perceptible. The heart in which a metaphoric engine, in which the context disabuses itself. Porous and destitute vision. The view south from County Road 41 and Signal Hill Road, Winslow, Arkansas. Let's see. Is it? It is. Is it? It is. Is it? Thank you.
Our next poet will be Susan Terris. Susan Terris's memos are the perfect expression of the ways that our momentary insights truly measure our deepest relationship to the world in which we live. She calls them memos, which suggests to me both the momentary thought jotted down and the immensity and yet fragility of the power of memory itself. She asks us with her example, what are the brief awarenesses, the little insights that arrest us in the moment and that have the power to awaken us from our mindless response to the quotidian? And yet such moments are too easily forgotten if we do not stay attuned, as Susan does, to that inner voice of attention. As David St. John so succinctly states, these are vignettes brilliantly rendered, precisely inscribed, and always impossible to forget. Susan's most recent full collection is Ghost of Yesterday, new and selected poems from Omnidawn Press. She is the author of 6 books of poetry, 15 chapbooks, and 3 artist books. Her journal publications include the Colorado Review, Southern Review, North American Review, Plowshares, and many others. And a poem from Memos will appear in Best American Poetry. She's the editor of Spillway Magazine and poetry editor for Pedestal. Let's give her a hand.
Thank you, Rusty. Again, everyone for coming out on this beautiful day to listen to poetry. You'll find I don't talk much when I read. These poems are all quite short, Some of them are 2 lines, most of them are 6, 8 lines. There are a couple that are as many as 10. But I will read them without much pause. There are memos to myself. There are memos to people that I know and people I don't know, and inanimate objects and committees, and there's a wide range of people addressed. And so I'm just going to start reading, and take a deep breath. Memo to the wild girl I was. Back then, baby, you prowled half-built houses, fell through the ice on the pond, went to jazz joints, oh St. Louis woman, in East St. Louis. You sole underage listener with a white face, lone cyclist pedaling out Highway 40, your fort in the wooded tract next to the projects, the copperhead you tried to tame. No diamond rings, but hey, you lived to see the evening sun go down. Memo to self. As the tiger is your demon, Molly Bloom and the wife of Bath are your companions, your BFFs. Women after love and sex, freedom and license. Women who say yes. This next is actually the poem that started the whole series, and you'll hear. Memo, no, wrong. Memo to the Homeless Woman by Sutter Stockton Garage. The cardboard sign says, I'm hungry, says AIDS, stained hoodie and market cart and pooch with pointed ears. Why you instead of me? Who gave me Rosie to ride and you only old tickets torn in half? I say stop, I want to get off, while you keep trying to get on, around and around. I try not to eye you, sitting cross-legged, head bowed. I throw money, can't bear the month-old baby in your lap. This was the first poem. Memo to the girl with the port wine stain across her face. A teenager, you're standing in front of the Lincoln Memorial, place which declares all created equal. And your friends are photographing you, not profile, so only the unblemished shows, but full face and smiling, audacious even. Your parents, I'd like to know them, people who love a girl with dreams of her own, girl who lives unmarked. Memo to the waiter at Absinthe. Snake tattoo and a buttery voice, another actor waiting for callbacks. A quick study, you tick through daily specials, including crab in black bean sauce with fennel and kelp. You take orders, dressing on the side and leek soup without cream and hold the cilantro. To be or not to be, not the tips that get you through the night, but the questions, the fardels, the bare bodkins, the line, the break. Memo to the NRA. If I tell you I need an assault rifle to explode watermelons, will I be sane, or will I be one more whack job who should be locked up? Sure, brandish that amendment, but guns do kill people, people walking down the street, people in a corner store, school children. If I'd had a pistol when I found a burglar 10 feet from where my children slept, I would have tried to kill him. But he, young and scared, might have taken both it and me. Memo to the woman who thinks you can't be too rich or too thin. The coda you added to rich and thin was white blouses. One could never have too many, you said. Then, the daughter who tried to starve herself into submission changed my mind about thin. And old ladies, I've noticed, come either too thin or too fat. One a penny, two a penny, money its own story. Coins for the ferryman may be required. But happy has no price tag, and thin is better for watches or pancakes. Though you may be right about the white blouses. Memo to self. How could you have forgotten Heathcliff? But you have, after decades of ache and lust. If he were to gallop off the moors now, you'd probably bitch he needs more than a shower and a shave. Memo to the New Jersey poet who bet me the Super Bowl spread. When I was growing up, spread meant Miracle Whip. You put on Wonder Bread with the bologna. What legs did in cement boots in the Mississippi if you peaked the St. Louis Mafia. What you put on top of scratchy wool blankets after you squared hospital corners, and we never said point spread but odds, not on games, but horses running at Hylia. And spread was also what other girls' mothers said not to do before marriage. Memo to my twin polar star. Yes, we explore dark matter and dark loins, which D.H. Lawrence found so compelling, or consider Marvel's winged chariot, but space is empty, pathetic fallacies abound, poetry only muddles the issue. How many light years when there is not world enough love or time? Memo to the editor who keeps rejecting my work. My good friend says acceptance from your journal comes only if a poet accumulates enough shine. Look, I'm dancing as fast as I can, and even if I were to strip, I know you're saying don't, but I'm not a 30-year-old phenom, though she's very thin, and you might not want her naked either. But you and I have a deal. Once each October, waltz, not tango, then your note. Nice work. Sorry. Try me next year. Memo to the widow who's still grieving. You're supposed to suck it up. The old plaid bathrobe, rusting lawnmower, letters found from another woman. But what of the canoe you two tipped in the wild rice? How dying he told you your price was above rubies. North by northwest is the way to distress, not healing. But morning at morning, to pack him in boxes and move him to the attic, may only send a madwoman there. Memo to my sister-in-law the day before she dies. Stage 4, hairless bed of bones. Remember how gorgeous you were only months ago at the museum. Now thin is excruciating. Why the chemo won't help. And your fierce old lover's back to nurse you. Irish guilt, perhaps. Let us go now to Innisfree. All those perfections useless. Cherry wood closets, the emerald necklace your husband never knew of. You grip me with ghost fingers, say clay and wattles, say you don't know what's happening, say do something. I tell them you want more morphine. Memo to the cat who keeps bringing me half-dead birds. Tremor of wounded breast, twitch of wing, remembering. For these gifts, Grimalkin, I do not thank you. Love comes in many forms. The almost moribund I know too well. So stop reminding me. Fangs are everywhere. Ding-dong bell. My own heart pierced often by words or by neglect. Like it or not, stop. We're all mad here. Memo to the woman who wants to run away. Spell out the reasons as if talking with Helen Keller. Is the distance near or far? Can you walk it in a week? Sing a song of sixpence and of a no-life life. Ask yourself if it's too late and how long you'd have to hide. Memo to self. Some days you're Jane, waiting for Mr. Rochester to see the fire beyond the plain brown wood of you, but also the mad woman upstairs, raging as both of you tinder the flames. Thank you.
Our next reader will be Claudia Keelan, and she'll be reading from her translation, Truth of My Songs, Poems of the Troubadours, the 12th century women troubadours. And by the way, the primary language is on facing pages, for those of you who read 12th century. The troubadours invested their poems with distinctly female voices, even as they used the troubadour poets' formal codes and styles. That these women were able to manipulate this male-ascended structure to express their own intimate and very often subversive concerns, rather than let their voices be manipulated by the form's dominance, suggests to me how relevant this work remains, at least for me and I hope for you, since so many of us today are looking for ways to recognize our own agency and to empower ourselves within the hierarchies that sometimes overwhelm us. The text begins with an amazing 20-page introduction, which Claudia uses to discuss the history of the troubadours and the challenges of her choices to bring this work into our common cultural medium and cultural currency. And you'll hear that as she reads. So she explains the risks and the relevancies of that choice. And it reflects the lineage of Pound's translations, Zukowski's, and Carson's more recently. Claudia Keelan, who is the author of 5 previous poetry collections and won the Jerome Shestak Award from APR and the Beatrice Hawley Award from Alice James Books, has an excellent ear for the music of lyric poetry, a wealth of critical experience in the history of the lyric, and she is a much respected talent as an innovative writer. She uses the system of language rather than lets herself be used by it. In many respects, she is the true daughter of the troubadours.
Hi. I think I'm this. They're my sisters, actually. I dedicate the book to my sisters. And you're one of them. Gillian's one of them. You know who you are. I'm going to start with a dance. It's a dance which also operates out of the ballad form, which uses a repetition. This is one that was written by an anonymous author. Because it was so long ago, we know that there are really between 16 and 20 known troubadours. Very little is known about any of them, but there are many anonymously authored lyrics, ballads, dances, tensos, which are poems in 2 voices, cansos, poems in 1 voice that scholars in the 20th century and recently have attributed to the troborites because of the language cadences within them that they define as distinctly feminine. This is a song that was supposed to be sung by people who are dancing at spring celebrations like we should be doing right now. And it may have been used to worship Flora and Venus. At the start of spring, la la, to begin again enjoy la la, her envy left to things or kings la la, Regina begins to show the Tao of her desire. To life, to this paradise, leave us, dancing together, together. She's called every one la la, from the land to the sea la la, all new girls and boys la la, to come to her for free and dance the happy dance. To life, to this paradise, leave us, dancing together, together. Roy comes from another where la la, to destroy what he'll never share la la, the April Queen, Regine la la, the dance, the sex, stolen freely from the air. To life, to this paradise, leave us, dancing, dancing together. King Roy can't wreck her or the dance, la la. Regina only breaks la la for love, for real trance, la la. For the perfect boy whose touch is God's mist, sun's hair, divinity's thrust. To life, to this paradise, leave us, dancing, dancing together. See how she is dancing then, la la, all mist, all sun, all God began, la la. We who share her now have been, la la, inside a day made whole again, inside Regina's newfound body. To life, to this paradise, leave us, dancing together, together. There's been a lot of speculation as to why these women, who essentially lived between the borders of Provence and the south of France, from Albi, what we know now as Albi, through Carcassonne, all the way up to what we now know as Barcelona. Of course, at the time, there was neither France nor Spain. And why they were the first instance of sustained women's writing, and why they disappeared. And we know that they inhabited a region with heretical Christian Cathars who were targeted by Pope Innocent III in the Third Crusade. Now, there are many, many crusades, hundreds and hundreds of years of them. It took them a long time to get from Rome to this area of France. And these women were writing in it within a very short period of about 100 years. And after that, the Albigensian Crusade, they were not heard of again. And many of the troubadours themselves were not heard of again. And if they were, the lady in the poem, which is the trope or the motif in the poem, turned into the Virgin Mary. So there was not another sustained instance of women's writing for centuries. And it was the first one, and it was a strong moment. It occurred while their husbands, apparently, who were feudal lords, they were all aristocratic women. They were young, they were like between the ages of 12 and 15, and their husbands were off fighting the infidel. And so the ladies of the castle were the ones who were in charge. And apparently had a good time and wrote quite a bit. This poem is known to be between Almuc de Castello and Izuit de Capian, who were both noble women and neighbors in the towns in Provence, about 30 miles east of Avignon. And they were active in the late 12th and earliest centuries. My friend Gillian, my sister, is going to come up here and read this with me. And she's going to be Almuc, and I'm going to be Izuit. And let me just say one more thing about it. There's a lot of elaborate ceremony that goes on between these people. Girls go to another girl and talk to her on behalf of her bad troubadour lover who has somehow done something wrong, to try to act as an intermediary. There's lots of gossip, lozenges, or who are, I call twisted sisters also, who are always listening. And you get this sense of this community that's like listening at each other's doors. And this is, Almuk is coming to tell Izuit, you know, come on, forgive him.
So it's girl talk.
It's girl talk.
Girlfriend, I'm begging, don't be rude. Drop this bad act and trade in your rage. Forgive your low-down dude and put on a good face. Though he lies there dying, he's sorry and keeps on trying. If you want him dead, at least let him take the last rites, the showdown, and he will wake to stop hurting you and playing fake.
Girl, if he even seemed a little sad, he might be able to erase the upshot of his disgrace, and I might pull back from being mad. But I won't be dumb, since he's gone deaf-mute, the bum, and claims to regret his wrong. No release for the liar who took away my peace. Still, if you could make him come clean, there might still be some love left in me.
Something.
Okay. Since I don't have all of my people here to read with me, I'm going to read a couple of cantos. This is Clara Danzuza. She lived in the first part of the 13th century, and she is also thought to have been a noblewoman, and she is linked with Lanfranc Segala, who was a troubadour lawyer. This is what's so amazing about all of these poems. I guess it's not amazing, but these women have such distinct personalities. Some of them really enjoy fin amour, this game of love, and others of them are so incredibly heartbroken by the game, and Clara was one of those. The dull weight I carry inside was buried there by killers of joy, by voyeurs and gossips and lying spies. My heart, a thick thing now, without my boy. For you were the one I loved the best, and as their slurs pushed you from my side, the time now comes to welcome death rather than live in awful resentment. If any will speak well of you again, she is sister who once I called foe. Just so she who says a word against you will then never again be called my friend. And all the small patrons of your fault who blame or ban my certain love for you, they are powerless to instruct my heart, as no other need has proven me true. And if you should doubt me, handsome friend, and think my song plays to another man, I'd never trade you, don't think that I can, though hundreds may try to buy my hand. This feeling for you has cast its spell. It took hold one day in my core and taught me to lock and guard you well, since your claim on me can't be ignored. Without you, I am so bitter, so mad, my tears drown out the song that I might sing. I'm deaf. There's no music in anything, not even these words where love once lived. I want to say pretty. This one's funny. It is by an anonymously written Trovaritz, if I can find it, and it has a refrain that says, "I'm so pretty, I'm so pretty." 12-year-old. I am so pretty and I don't love my husband anymore. 54. 12th century. You go, girl. I am so pretty and I don't love my husband anymore. This is why I'm loving. I'm pretty. Small and young and ready. I'm pretty. I want a husband who is gay so we can dance the night away. I'm pretty. God help me if I ever really love. I'm pretty. Instead of this my false desire, I'm pretty. If he would finally die, I'd set my shame on fire. I'm pretty. There's one thing I know. I'm pretty. If my lover wanted me more, I'm pretty. My fine hope would make our lore, but he doesn't come for me. I'm pretty. There's another thing I know. I'm pretty. I'm the one he always adored. I'm pretty. But now I say goodbye to him and any happiness he might bring. I'm pretty. With my sing, I dance. With my song, I dance a pretty dance. I'm pretty. For girls to sing here and far away. I'm pretty. Hope sings too without any chance. But I'll sing about my lover anyway. I'm pretty. Such a baby. Baby song. I'm going to call up Donald Revell, my husband, to read a poem with me. Between Guillaume de Rosaire and Lanfranc Segala. As I said before, Lanfranc was a prominent Genoese lawyer, and Guillaume was thought to have been a noblewoman of Provence. And she may have exchanged this tenso with him when he was a Genoese ambassador in 1241. And the first stanza is Guy, Lanfranc.
It was a cold and stormy night, and some sad strangers talking in the dark wished aloud for a place dry, free of danger. Two lovers going to their girls heard them, while one ran back to offer cover. The other ran on to the mating game. What would you do if you were a lover?
The way I see it, love's all about trust. Those who make their own beds do best. Who cares that he gave help to strangers? All she saw was he'd flunked the test. While her sister held her man in her arms, she lay alone, afraid he was harmed. I'd choose him who comes home to me and drop the one with Jesus syndrome.
You shouldn't even use the word trust, since it was belief in love that showed him how to help the rest escape harm or death. That's the test. To love who most needs love. She should fall on her knees and see with open eyes that this man who loves her, who stopped to aid the lost, the hungry, the cold, he did what only great hearts are told.
So now you're down to justify a guy who lives to rectify. His code has zero to do with love. If his act meant to exemplify, why so late to her above all? All of them would have been grateful. There's no lack of down and outs to help in places closer to home.
Well, excuse me, lady, I'm a simp. What I knew all along is true. Your happiness will always elude any way but that which leads to you. If you want to teach a horse to jump, you guide it with brains and become sage. Lovers go lame when spurred too hard. His limp is your due, and now you rage.
This is the last time I'll say it. That man should do what's fit right now and pay his dues to his fine and beautiful woman. When she's at home, the feast begins, even when he's gone. But he's chicken. Every man's a hero. But that wimp, if real bad showed up, he'd fly the coop.
Lady, I'm strong and I'm firm. Not for you. I could ruin my sleep. The second time won't come so cheap. Do what you can to best my rhyme.
Heads up. Here's a promise I won't break. With everything I know and all I feel, With all my brains for my own defense, I'll elude the words of any man. I will read one more. This is the final poem in the book, and it is a Cervantes. It's an unknown author, again. And Cervantes is a poem that argues a polemical position, a political position. And obviously, you can probably tell from these poems that these women thought that their position was a political position, and they were trying to make a place for themselves in these poems. This is a poem in memory of Sylvia, a translation in the memory of Sylvia Plath, who needed sisters. The poets who wrote our book are dead, and our fiction is their fault. For they were those who taught that women are slave and master to audiences predisposed to hear. Our status early met disaster, and what was posed haunt us to this year. And because I have more than one mouth to tell, I tell it well, and as our sister said, I do it so it feels like hell. The fable goes that good poets are always the best lovers, but some old poems serve to show it. Love breeds misogyny under covers. A girl is not a nation, but the worst would have it so. The canon, a spy's oblation, and poet's lies, culture's code. See how the more he strives for love, things for our girl are worse to go. If you think that girls cause love to go wrong, hear the warning in my anti-love song. A group of men is indeed a club. Perhaps it's time they open their meeting. M's poems play like opinion polls, where different faiths and women alike take the blame for what is worst on earth, assigning the greatest crimes to our mothers simply for their births. I'll say what's been said before by the truth that hides in history, that each should defend her sisters and her brothers. It's no mystery. Since together we are woman and man, and in each other have made the race. But this is my poem, where girls come first. Standing together, we make our case. And as for me, I could have done worse.
So we have two more readers. Our next reader is the amazing Don Revell, who you met a moment ago as in the other century, but he's now coming to us in this one. Don Revell has been a dear friend to Omnidawn since its early years. He's published so many of his wonderful translations with us, and the fantastic Invisible Green, which he generously let us publish. But this work, essay and memoir, is a work incomparable to any other. This text is so many books at once. It is a close reading of Donald Revell's most beloved poets and prose writers as he returns again to Creeley, to Dante, to Whitman, and a host of others. But more than a close reading, it's a navigation into close living, as he tells his personal story through the lens of the language that has compelled and in many senses created the man and the poet that he is, in the constant turbulence of being and becoming. No one writes prose as lyrically as Don, as rich with allegory and insight. And just to note, you'll see on the cover, Don selected this because of the intimacies with Blake that he discusses in the book. And as he tells us, quote, William Blake painted many eyes into this picture. A man could use them. Don Revell is professor of English and graduate studies at director at UNLV, and more things too. He has published 12 poetry books. His most recent is Tantivy from Alice James. His previous translations include 4 published by Omnidawn, A Season in Hell won the PSA Translation Award, and he lives with his wife, poet Claudia Keelan, and their children Benjamin Brecht and Lucy Ming in Las Vegas. Let's welcome Don.
Dove sta memoria? This goes to Ezra. What becomes of memory is what comes of it. The very first photograph taken of my sister, Roberta, in heaven, dates from 1948. The cast of the St. Peter's Church annual Christmas pageant gather in full costume, a pastoral underneath balloons and mistletoe in the parish hall. The pageant has ended. You can almost hear a late train grinding through the midnight air outside and above. My sister, innkeeper's wife that year, is the 8-year-old with bangs cut straight across her forehead. She kneels in the first row. She holds a lantern up above her hair. I was born in 1954, and my sister, my dear one, died in 1995. I'd never seen this photograph, now on my desk, before 2001. It appears in a mustard yellow book, The Beautiful Bronx, by Lloyd Ulton, founder of the Bronx County Historical Society Journal. And I would never have seen the book, I'm certain, save for the fact that my friend John Ashbery sent it to me out of the blue. The pageant cannot remember itself, and then it does. John could not have known that hidden away in the tall pages would be a Roberta I'd never seen, exactly as I'd never seen her, really, time out of mind. The affirmation of images has a mind of its own, and you can almost hear the late trains passing by. Transit, not transitive, memory goes ahead of itself and us. Recollection antedates the image whose image is prophetic. Or pageant. I never sought to tell my love. Love told me. Our neighborhood was an ethnic jumble. Given the turbulence of the 1960s, calm. I'm tempted to say pastoral, but you wouldn't believe me. Still, with the meadows of Pelham Bay Park to northward, the waters of Long Island Sound to the south, and a blur of City Island east in the sunrise, it was pastoral to many and to me. By 1965, I'd been a shepherd in St. Peter's annual pageant 2 or 3 times already, with a golden crown in sight. My new school, Henry Bruckner Junior High, mirrored the neighborhood perfectly in every way. Yet with the teachers counted in, numbers began to favor our Italian-American friends. I knew nothing, walking through the gates on the first school day of Virgil, Ferenzi, and the papacy, but that was soon to change. I hope you'll believe me. In English class, towards the end of the 45-minute hour, we had a visitor. Miss Petrusa was a small woman with closely cropped, coppery-colored hair. She seemed, during the teacher's introduction, literally to vibrate with excitement, although she stood stock still. We learned that our class had been uniquely honored. Beginning Friday and continuing every Friday for the next 3 years, we would study, instead of ordinary English, Dante, with Miss Petrusa in the school's small, sunny library. 7th grade, Inferno. 8th grade, Purgatorio. Paradiso in our senior year. Knowing nothing of Dante, we saw nothing extraordinary or bizarre in the commedias displacing Treasure Island, Warner's grammar, and business letter writing 1 day out of every 5. We liked the looks of the library. It had tall windows, clean tables, and smelled like Christmas cellophane. Miss Petrusa was always delighted to see us. Never once in our 3 years, precisely 100 Fridays, did she become angry or severe. We quickly cherished her. To some of us, she was a doting auntie. To some, myself among them, she was an orphaned, gaudy bird. What seemed familiar, we loved. What seemed strange, we intended to protect at all costs from all outsiders. The ungainly pageant of our damnation, purgation, and bliss went very well. The ceremonies of innocence never drowned, not even among simonists and suicides. The worst that ever happened was that occasionally, early arrivals would crowd around the illustrated dictionary, parsing genitalia. Miss Petrusa gave no homework. All she asked was that should an image from the given week's canto catch fire in our minds, we try to capture it with crayons and colored pencils. Images! 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 She would exclaim. It was from Miss Petrusa, surely, that I learned to honor the affirmative way. To this day, I can draw nothing better than stick figures and red fires or big roses. But heart and mind, I've entrusted my salvation to imagery. I've never met an allegory I didn't like. Even in times of imageless darkness and confusion, the sounds of words lead on to kindly light. Per te, poeta fui, per te, Christian. Given 100 Fridays and a happy teacher, I've been familiar with eternity quite some time. In May of 1967, new critics ruled the earth, and our class was nearing the end of Purgatorio. Accustomed week by week to very close reading into the vast interiors of our poets' images, Dante was our poet by then, and the city of Florence a Bronx with funny little bridges. We'd come to the cantos of earthly paradise, to the rivers Leyte and Unoe, and to new trees at heaven's brink. It was time for a field trip. On Friday, May 19th, we boarded a bus and crossed the river to Manhattan and Fort Tryon Park. Miss Petrusa was taking us to the cloisters, John D. Rockefeller's anthology of medieval stone and gardens staring down the Palisades. I'd never been to the place. None of us had. Though crossing the George Washington Bridge en route to the discount houses of New Jersey, we might have seen it, a blind church on a rocky outcrop. In the years ahead, I'd often spend my birthdays there. In June 1970, in the cloister called Tree, I wrote my first poem. But I'm thinking of the very first visit now. More than the altarpieces, tombs, and tapestries, more than the unicorns and the fruit trees trained to look like candles, what caught my eye was a single wooden bead. Netherlandish, scarcely 2 inches wide, open to the viewer on a hinge. It is not so much carved out of boxwood as into it. Look ever so closely. There's far to go. The eye finds north and south 2 concave hemispheres. To the north is every detail of Christ's nativity, birth and adoration and the flight into Egypt in depth, in intricate relief. The north is Alpha. The south is all Calvary. Unimaginable death agony cut in and cut farther in, interiors multiply without a vanishing point. The south is Omega. The whole span of Christ's mortality lies open to view. Then the mind remembers what the eye has seen. Here is a single bead. Close it shut upon its hinge. The Alpha and Omega reunite. Mortality floats in an ocean of limitless space and time. A bubble of boxwood, a bead, just one of many of a scattered strand. Having taught us to read closely on Dante's epic scale, Miss Petrusa, on the 19th day of May, 1967, taught us to read an image, alter idem, inwards, and then farther in. It would be impossible to carve or to pray an entire rosary of such beads. Each is a lifetime, self-contained. Alpha, prior to Alpha, and Omega, after the end, merely describe a round surface of boxwood. It is a bubble for bursting, like the sun, never seen to burst. The bead snaps shut. Invisible now to one another, creator and creature are one, and one love. Subject and object, one and the same. Lover and beloved, one and the same. The entire strand must be a span of lifetimes, dimensionless and without end. A pageant cannot read itself, and then it nearly does. It reunites with all the pageants, ongoing. Identity trumps awareness. Beatrice looks down from the visionary car and says to Dante, fratre, which is to say, brother. I find my sister gone ahead of me, backwards, into a book. I see where she has gone, whenever I wish, in the days remaining. Memory is entity. There is a grain of sand in Lambeth Satan cannot find. Our time with Miss Petrusa ended 1 year later. The last of our Fridays was devoted to Paradiso, Canto 33, the finale in Periphrasis in Imperium, a hymn beginning, Vergine Madre, figlia del tuo figlio. The phrase itself is a beat of boxwood. The Virgin Mother, daughter of her only Son, perfects in detail, in every mortal and divine specific, Alpha prior to Alpha and Omega without end. Our mothers and fathers, along with the school administrators from all around the Bronx, were invited to join us for this last meeting. Miss Petrusa planned something special. We'd be dressed in white as best we could. White shirts and blouses, white chinos and pleated skirts, white sneakers. Gathered choir fashion facing our guests, and with our backs to the sunny windows, we'd recite the entire canto from memory. Then we'd exit, in pageant, past the statuette of Dante by the door.
Mm-hmm.
It went well. No one afterwards remembered anything amiss. As for myself, I remember only whiteness and then walking off. In adult life, reading that final canto again, many, many times, I come to line 64. Così la neve alzò il di siglia. Like an eternity opened upon its hinge, revealing infinite distances. White snow unsealed in the sunlight shows a whiteness without end. The chromatic union directly before and directly after Dante's prismatic word. Here is a credible forecast of Hart Crane's final sky. Here a tall decorum unseals earth, showing no gaps. And still it shows every prophecy and soul between my Florentine and my Bedlamite. Man and boy, I have seen it. Passing by the statuette at the door, I must have seen. Well, I graduated, so you'll have to. John Ashbery, Gorbaduff. Schooled by overwhelming words and loves, figlia del tuo figlio. My older sister, younger than myself, an ageless pageant, boxwood, I read as closely as I can. Reading should be heroic, Thoreau. Where the point of reading loses dimension, I love, we love. Because of the conjugations, it's nothing personal, T.S. Eliot. It's prophecy in every soul in between. Every word has a hinge and every footstep a horizon. For heaven's sake, these are spiritual entities, not structural doodads. Structuralists do not exist. Trailing clouds of glory, existence streams the illustrious transactions. Beatrice, smiling for the last time into mortal eyes, your eyes belong to God, where Dante finds them, e cala sorrise riguardon. Open a word, Uthun, and exactly there does knowledge remember itself virginal, unhurt. Hearing footsteps, Perdita, hear the eternal happy shouts of reunion. Little boy and Pomonic, the outsetting bard should outset in. Every word is a ceremony, and every footstep redoubles the horizon of its home. In the forecourt of the Temple of Apollo at Delphi, the inscription reads, Notai Sutan, know thyself. Inscribed upon a forecourt, it means go in. At this point, alphabets bend. Hemispheres close, one upon another, death agony upon Christmas adoration, and the rounded universe is a single bead, and the numberless heaven. If this is boxwood, it is driving me wild. Jack Spicer, poems are wild for prophecy, for the quick parlay of vision into reality. Begun ahead of time, visions move more ways than one, yet each way is the pattern of itself and cannot change. If not for the leopard, the lion, and the she-wolf, Dante might have taken the shortcut. Happily, Virgil takes him in hand, and together they go the right way round, in visionary transit, and together they go the right way round. Knowledge may hope to find its path to self-knowledge, but only when vision itself is unsealed. How so? In Years of Indiscretion, John Ashbery offers a beautiful phrase, sotto voce, but in earnest. Vision in the form of a task. What is the task? To read closely into our loves, remembering each its place in the pageant. Memory unseals a poet's vision of these, placing the poet in right relation, and then the pageant moves. The movement is prophecy. Do this in remembrance of me. Christ's imperative, while spoken quietly, tenderly to friends, is epical. They have had their vision. Multifoliate nature has affirmed the images of their inward minds, one and by one, which is to say that they know and that they love. Now Christ calls them to a task. Knowledge must go beyond the pagan forecourts into self-knowledge. I love, and I have a name which the vision speaks to me, to be written down only then, and only by me. Love itself must also move. L'antica fiamma must be lifted and carried high, invisible pageant, along the arc of its homing. Again and again my poets redouble the use of memory. It is pure theater, with the emphasis on pure, as Perdita, Uthun, and all the voluptuary star turns of poetry sing. The pageant remembers itself, a shepherd and a king. Thank you.
We have one more reader presentation. As most of you know, Richard O. Moore died just this week before he was able to see the book actually be here. Although he knew, of course, it was coming, he held the galley in his hand. We had a little party for him about a couple months ago, and that the book received a Publishers Weekly excellent review, and that the book, poems from it were in Poetry Magazine, and so it was very real to him. I actually have 2 pages of his history that I was going to share with you, but I think that the most important thing is that I invite his family up and have the poems read to you, rather than waste time with my telling you about him. There's a wonderful introduction by Cedar Seago, and if you pick up the book, you'll see so many fine things about him. He was an amazing man. We'll hear from his daughter, Flynn Moore Rauch, and his sons, Daniel Rauch, his grandson, Daniel Rauch, and his sons, Tony Moore and David Moore. And so they'll come up in order.
Hi. Thank you for being here. My dad was really big on thanking people and acknowledging all the work that they've done. So I know that he and I do also want to thank Rusty and Ken and Jillian so much for working so hard to make it the book that he wanted. And that was so important to them to have every little detail be what he wanted, and I think it's quite successful. I was lucky to be involved, two-sided thing, but he was declared legally blind a couple of years ago, so he was not able to use the computer. So I took his email dictation, so I had a lot of contact with them, and I'm going to really miss that. It was a lot of fun for me to be so involved. And he, of course, would also like to thank his editors, Brenda Hillman, Garrett Caples, and Paul Evenkamp. And Garrett, especially has done so much recently to help with the magazine publications and just help publicize him, I guess. And another person to thank is Janet Tumpich, who is his daughter-in-law and my sister-in-law, who did the cover for him. In the back, there's the author photo, which was taken at Crissy Field at a Marc de Souvreau event, at which he read a poem that was dedicated to the event. It's in black and white, so you can't see it, but it's actually there. He's in the foreground. In the back, it's a beautiful blue, and also the Golden Gate Bridge. So the colors are, this is the bridge, and that's the official Golden Gate Bridge color. And then the blue lines are the blue in the photo, and then, not sure what, I don't actually remember the well, I know what they are, but I mean why the color.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the color, and what he's representing is, this is actually, it's a map, and this is a map that a child would see. It has blue lines, which shows the highways and roads. They're different sizes, and then the yellow dots are the cities, and some of them kind of fade away. So it works. And I want to read a fairly short poem, which was he wrote after my husband John and I took him to SF MoMA, to the Steins Collect exhibit. And this was at the beginning, was when he was losing his vision, so it was kind of sporadic. Standing before Picasso's boy leading a horse. The horse does not threaten the nude boy whose shy teenage bravado stares straight ahead as if to say, look what I've got. The horse, all muscle power and animal pride, is willing to be led into the illuminating light, the rose-pink, omnipresent air of the gallery. Look again. The room is fogged. The paintings and their accompanying texts have disappeared. The larger than 4x7 frame is gone. The painting I thought I saw was memory, and not the painting I could not see hanging on the white wall. Until the boy and the horse brushed past me, faintly odorous and warm. Thank you. And now my son Daniel.
Hi. I'm going to read two selections from a portion of his book called The Grief Octaves. 1. Waterfall, Russian Gulch State Park. Recently, I've been receiving lessons in death. How a shallow stream swallows light and spits it out in jagged splinters. Image-broken mirrors. This is one of the ways life works. Indirect choices that lead unerringly to determined ends. The trail is slipperiest near the waterfall, but every step leads this way only. Take care. Once you're here, there's no place else to be. And number 3, poetry. Hourly, I need it more and more. This stop-troubled time to find stars behind cloud cover, or the hidden colors of a fallen leaf, or navigation beacons moved by stealth to places I have never been before. I need the shell game words, the P, to make a second's worth of narrative. A landmark renamed, a present tense that stretches shadows far. And now Tony.
Wow, that smells good. I just wanted to thank Rusty Ken again. Father asked me to read Wild Honeysuckle. There is that which, having traveled far, returns, although not native to this place. Wild honeysuckle, sweet vernal grass. And there is that which, although far traveled, does not return. The name holds in language, but we will search for it in vain. Crowded out of life, a glory never again seen. The legend of it memorized, filed under incidents past. Today, make do with hedge nettle and scarlet pimpernel.
Thank you all for being here, and what a wonderful celebration of poetry. And thanks, I always like to thank the indigenous people of this place who are our hosts. Indeed, there's a wonderful poem in here called Wittgenstein at the Powwow, of which I think Dad has a similar gratitude. I'll read just a couple to finish up here. This is called A Family Affair. In a manner of speaking, a life is what is said of it, not starlight, but the story of sun-centered stars, or so we say, again and again, and believe it. Keep your distance, or be burned into a scabbed disfigurement of what, so we are told, makes sense. The authenticating angels have been paid off, cannot blow a whistle, are silent as stone angels must be. In ceremony at the solstice, lay out the ornament of the years and say, this is a world of words. Winter came suddenly with no surprise. One daybreak, the maps stiffened, ache became visible. We were prepared through evening lectures and the internet. We were not prepared to live it yet. Velcro mind, stay with me on this trip. Stay with me now as the cosmologist dazzles with starlight just arrived from before the Earth had settled into orbit. Double occupancy for the one space, a great migration of yes and no of case. Velcro mind, stay with me. Move grandly into the gathering of words and measurements, a reach, hand span, light speed, pressures that lift mountains, break seas, from the grand uproar of the first event, in a non-detectable nil of time. Velcro mind, hold to your post-mathematics album that measures a world in years of light, in geologic pages of stone. Hang on to it, and it to you. Velcro. Lost memory of a sudden taking leave, a kite caught in winter branches. Have we not been here before? Remember, a commodious vicus of recirculation, and rejoice. And must read off the page that rejoice is spelled as in James Joyce, one of his faves. So I'll finish with just a short one called Here. It's a 10-line poem in 2 stanzas. Here. There is a story of a populous valley, always on the other side. The hills are sand color under what cannot be called a sheltering sky. enameled into a pale blue glaze. The sea is distant, but can be sensed from here. Years ago, victory was declared in this new daily invented place, although daily a battle against a desert must be engaged. New scripts written, laid out on the water table, quickly absorbed.
Thank you so much to Richard's family, and thank you, Richard. I'm sure wherever you are, you're smiling down at us. Thank you, wonderful readers, the spectacular. Thank you, Book Passage. Thank you, Jillian Hamill and Ken Keegan, who keep this press afloat. Please have wine. We brought tons of bottles of wine and sparkling water. Please check out the books. They're here and they're available for purchase at all of the registers. And in whatever ways you can, support Book Passage. We're so grateful for this store and for the wonderful things they do for independent publishers, publishing, and writers. So thank you, everybody.